Alright, so in the previous video we have seen how to construct this REST API and how to connect it with MongoDB. And as I mentioned in the introduction, now we are going to look more forward into error handling. So handling errors or exception is a very important thing when it comes to backend development because sometimes several functions will be invoke errors or they may not be work as it is intended. So in such cases there will be exceptions, there will be errors. So if you haven't properly handled those errors or exceptions, what will happen is basically it will terminate your backend application, or it may generate some sort of unusual data for the user or to the client, right? So these stuff we need to properly handle, and now let's see how to do those stuff. And first thing we are going to focus is how to handle these routes. So if you look at post.routes, so this defined all the necessary routes for us, and these routes are imported at the app.json. So whenever you invoke this sort of a URL, it will be point to these specific routes. But what happens if we invoke a route that is not defined like this? Then in such cases it will generate a sort of an error because there is no predefined route like that. So let's see how we can handle these unhandled routes. So it's pretty much simple. So all we have to do is when it comes to the app sorry, when it comes to the app.used which uses these post routes, let's say if it encounters any other route rather than these routes, it must be handled as an unhandled route. So that's the logic. And yeah, if I demonstrate what I am saying, so right now we have these sort of routes, but for example let's invoke another route, but let's say all maybe image or something like that. So this route is not defined, which means if I invoke this request now, it will basically generate cannot get the data with this route. And if you look into the backend, it is still running, but with the client side it will generate an error. So these are the unhandled routes that we need to handle. So in such cases what we can do is we can define a generalized route over here, which means we are using all, right? All means get, post, patch, delete, any other request, right? With respect to any route. So any route is defined by this asterisk mark, which means if it encounter any route rather than these routes, it will go to this app.all route section. And once it is forwarded to this route, we need to invoke some sort of a request back to the user by saying this route is not defined or something like that. So basically I can define a middleware function like this, request, response, and next. So this is a middleware function. And yeah, if you are not aware of what is middleware is about, as I mentioned in the introduction, middleware is a function that plays in between two route calls or two function calls, right? So whenever you call this middleware, what happens is that it execute its defined functionality and it will call back to the next function, right? So that is how middleware works. So in this case, what we are going to do is we are going to use this function as a middleware to handle this unhandled routes. So simply we can return a response with the status code, maybe let's say 404. So 404 status code stands for not found, and we can simply return a JSON structure by saying status is failed, and message, let's say can't find the route, something like that. Right, now if I invoke this request again, what will happen is that it will return a meaningful message for the client by saying can't find the route. But you must be very careful when you are defining such route, because in case if you place this functionality over here like this, what happens is that every functions that you are invoking will go to this section and it will basically return can't find the route, right? So instead of that, you should place it like this. Then what happens is that if any route doesn't match with the requested route, then it will go to this section, right, as a last option that it can go, right? Then it will return basically this message. Okay, so that's the first sort of error that we have handled. So I will make a comment, let's say error handling, let's say handling unhandled routes. Right, error handling. Right, so in the next video, let's look at how to improve these functions and error handling and stuff like that. And yeah, thank you.